Hey there guys, this is your host Richard with another marvelous video. This dragon comes with physical deformities but still looks scarily vicious and serpentine. Its red scales earned it the name the Bloodworm, and it's none other than Daemon Targaryen's buddy, Caraxes. The show, House of the Dragon, has many fire breathers, but Caraxes is unique. Caraxes shrieks instead of roaring, moves rather weirdly, and is a bit of a Casanova who's smitten by Rhaenyra Targaryen's dragon, Syrax. Despite the oddities, Caraxes is a fearsome power and holds a legendary status in the world of Westeros. Caraxes comes with a unique anatomy, one that requires it to have leg wings, otherwise Caraxes can't fly. We told you, Caraxes is a little bit crazy but a lover at heart, and that's what makes this dragon a perfect companion to Daemon Targaryen. So, let's hear more about this dragon, who loves a good show of violence and is hardened by years of battle experience. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Caraxes? What's the connection with Prince Aemon Targaryen? This dragon loves to burn. That's Caraxes, you guys. Caraxes is the dragon of Daemon Targaryen in House of the Dragon, a serpentine fire breather who's existed in George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood lore since before 72 AC. Because by that year, Caraxes was big enough to be ridden and was claimed by Aemon Targaryen, the Prince of Dragonstone and King Jaehaerys I's eldest son and heir to the Iron Throne. A young dragon at that time, Caraxes was the fiercest of the new clutch of dragons that resided within the freshly completed dragon pit. Caraxes' aggressive nature, red scales and serpentine body earned it the moniker of the Bloodworm from the Dragon Keepers. Aemon and his siblings Alyssa and Balon loved to take to the skies with the dragons, Caraxes, Meleys and Vhagar. Caraxes witnessed its first battle during the Fourth Dornish War in 83 AC, when Aemon rode on Caraxes and destroyed the Dornish army along with King Jaehaerys on Vermithor and Balon on Vhagar. The Targaryens, with the help of their dragons, decimated the Dornish fleet before they could make landfall in the Stormlands, thus ending the war even before it started. And that too without losing a single man of the Targaryen army. This was something even Aegon the Conqueror had never been able to do. Caraxes loved violence, and this was its first taste of battle. Caraxes' next war experience was in 92 AC, when the dragon flew to the island of Tarth to aid the Lord of Tarth fight off the Myrish invaders, who had conquered the eastern half of the island. Caraxes left the ally fleet of Corlys Velaryon behind and reached the island first. It's said that when Caraxes was feeding on goats, its fire breath caught the attention of the Myrish crossbowmen, who had been scouting the island to track down the camp of Lord Cameron Tarth. They concentrated their attacks on the Westerosi camp and aimed for the Lord of Tarth, but missed and hit Aemon in the throat instead. Aemon died from his injuries, leaving Caraxes riderless till Aemon's nephew Daemon Targaryen bonded with the dragon in 105 AC. When we meet Caraxes in House of the Dragon, it's already established a deep bond with its rider Daemon. Soon enough in the storyline, the Rogue Prince, as Daemon is known in the lore, is ousted from King's Landing by his brother King Viserys. He rides back to Dragonstone on Caraxes along with his lover Mysaria with him. During the War of the Stepstones, Daemon launched Caraxes into battle and attacked the Crabfeeders' camps along the coast of Bloodstone. But the Crabfeeder and his army retreated into the caverns, escaping Caraxes' fire breath, and both Caraxes and his rider got attacked by burning arrows in retaliation. Daemon was forced to retreat for the time being, vowing to return with vengeance. Even though the Crabfeeder's army suffered minimal damage in the assault, witnessing a full-blown dragon and its devastating power left quite an impression on the Crabfeeder and his Triarchy forces. In the book, Daemon and his niece Princess Rhaenyra, who he'd later marry, often flew between King's Landing and Dragonstone on their dragons Caraxes and Syrax. On the show, Daemon flies Caraxes over the boat young Rhaenyra was traveling in on her way back to King's Landing. After Daemon married Laena Velaryon, who was bonded with Vhagar, Caraxes was seen flying alongside Vhagar in the skies above Pentos. Later in the lore, Caraxes would go on to fight Vhagar in Harrenhal during the Dance of the Dragons Civil War. How big is Caraxes? Vhagar is the biggest living dragon in all of the Seven Kingdoms, and Caraxes is said to be about half her size, or just a little bit more, which still gives Caraxes an intimidating size. In our previous videos, we've estimated Vhagar to be around 250 to 260 feet long, which makes Caraxes around 130 to 140 feet in length. And as per our calculations, the dragon Meleys is about 150 to 160 feet in length, which makes Caraxes slightly shorter than the Red Queen. Interestingly enough, Caraxes' wingspan surpasses its overall body length and must measure somewhat around 180 to 200 feet. This isn't really that much in comparison to Meleys, whose wingspan is double of her body length, and that makes it 300 feet of wing area. From the aerial shots in the series, it can be surmised that Vhagar's wingspan is also almost double of her length, which measures around a whopping 450 to 500 feet. So Caraxes might pale in front of Vhagar and the other big dragons such as Vermithor, but it's still of a fearsome size. When compared with its mate, the much younger Syrax, Caraxes is noticeably larger than Rhaenyra's dragon. Caraxes emerges as the winner when compared with Daenerys Targaryen's dragons from the show Game of Thrones. Between Rhaegal, Viserion, and Drogon, the last one is the biggest of Dany's dragons, who measures up to 120 to 130 feet, and thus Caraxes wins by a few 10 feet or so. In House of the Dragon, when Daemon pets Caraxes during the dragon's first appearance, the Targaryen prince appears like a miniature in front of the dragon. Just Caraxes' head appears around the length of Daemon's height, which is presumed to be around 6 feet. We got an idea about Caraxes' claw size when the dragon crushed a captive soldier during the War of the Stepstones. In the coasts of Bloodstone, Caraxes' claw engulfed an entire human and could easily crush 2 or 3 more humans together. This scene also reveals that Caraxes' wings can shield almost its entire body, minus perhaps the tail portion. Let's explore a theory about the size of Caraxes. During the first part of Season 1, Daemon flies on Caraxes from King's Landing to Dragonstone, and later steals a dragon egg. In the lore, this event happens around 2 decades ahead of the Dance of the Dragon Civil War. George R.R. Martin also tells us that dragons never stop growing in size, which means Caraxes gets bigger, badder, and meaner during the second season of the show. Caraxes is believed to be among the older crop of dragons, but he really isn't that old, which leaves room for Caraxes to amplify in size in the future storyline. Caraxes' egg was placed in Aemon Targaryen's cradle sometime around 55 AC, and by 72 AC, this dragon was big enough to be mounted. Since we're not sure when exactly Caraxes was hatched, its age can range anything between 57 to 72 years old during the Targaryen Civil War. Going by this theory, Caraxes was outmatched by Vhagar not only in terms of size and might, but also years of battle experience. Vhagar's one of the 3 original dragons that accompanied Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters from Valyria during the conquest of the Seven Kingdoms. It's said that Vhagar has been around since 52 BC, which is before Conquest, and the Dance of the Dragons happened around 129 AC, which is after Conquest. This makes Vhagar around 180 years old, over a century older than Caraxes. When Daemon Targaryen and his wife Laena Velaryon flew on their dragons together, Vhagar completely eclipsed Caraxes in terms of size. In House of the Dragon, Laena described Vhagar as too large for the dragon pit, and Viserys agreed, saying the dragon is way too big for the world itself. As the largest and oldest living dragon, Vhagar is a war veteran, all thanks to her previous riders Visenya Targaryen and Baelon Targaryen. Hence, it's no wonder that Caraxes died fighting Vhagar in the battle above the God's Eye. In the fateful clash, Daemon on Caraxes challenges his nephew Aemond riding on Vhagar, and even though Caraxes is fierce and agile, Vhagar is stronger and more aggressive and ripped open Caraxes' belly with her claws. Daemon's dragon had the advantage of a serpentine neck and bit into Vhagar's throat, but Vhagar's formidable size and strength played a crucial role in the battle's outcome, leading to both dragons and their riders falling to their death. What color is Caraxes? The dragons created by George R.R. Martin usually have one primary color, with a secondary color highlighting the wing membranes, crests, and spikes. In the case of Caraxes, it's a menacing shade of red that almost makes the dragon appear bronze at times. Caraxes' scarlet scales are complemented by its red wing membranes, which have patches of black at the folds. Contrasting its body color are the dragon's eyes, which have glowing green irises and a vertical pupil, as with all dragons. The black patches on Caraxes' body are matched by the black spikes that run along its back, and even though the spikes are shorter than the ones on Meleys or Vermax, they jut out and flutter threateningly when Caraxes is in a mood to intimidate. Caraxes also comes with brow spikes in red and black, which perpetually make the dragon look angry and cunning. Caraxes also has a bunch of pale bronze spikes jutting out of its lower jaw, giving this dragon an aged, aggressive appearance. Let's note an interesting point here. Some theorize that dragons reproduce asexually. In that case, a pack of freshly hatched dragons would look somewhat like a homogeneous bunch. But in Westerosi history, the dragons have always been different in color, even if they are from the same clutch of eggs, with the colors varying from red and green to gold and bronze, and even black and blue. The oldest known dragon, Balerion, had black scales and wings, and even a dark fire breath, which contributed to its name, the Black Dread. Caraxes is not the only red dragon on the show, as Meleys has strikingly bright red scales and pink wing membranes, which earned her the name the Red Queen. Vhagar, though not explicitly red, has bronze scales. Does Caraxes share a deep connection with Daemon? Let's begin by saying that Daemon and Caraxes' bond is the best human-dragon relationship there is. Caraxes loves violence, enjoys sexual promiscuity, has a thing for dramatic entrances, and sings to other dragons. All these traits really make this serpentine dragon the perfect companion for Daemon. In the first episode of Season 1, Caraxes can be seen curled up in a cavern while Daemon is petting it. Caraxes is visibly twisted and uncomfortable in the cave, clearly suggesting that it doesn't like to be confined, just like Daemon. Dragons are said to be highly emotionally intelligent, and they bond with their riders on a spiritual level. Dragons can sense their master's emotions and thoughts, which is also seen in the case of Daemon and Caraxes. It's almost as if they have a telepathic connection. After Daemon stole a dragon egg from King's Landing, he's confronted by Hand of the King Otto Hightower in Dragonstone. During their heated conversation, Caraxes watched over Daemon from the nearby cliff and shrieked and growled to make its presence known to Otto and his men. Daemon hated Otto, and Caraxes mirrored the same emotion. Also, during the funeral of Daemon's wife Laena Velaryon at high tide, Caraxes seemed to be grieving alongside Daemon. When Daemon and Caraxes burn the Crab Feeder's army in Bloodstone, they're attacked with fiery arrows. Caraxes immediately shields Daemon from the attacks, taking all the blows on its wings. Moreover, when Daemon gets shot by an arrow, Caraxes evaluates the situation and takes off with its master instead of continuing the fight. It's pretty awesome to see that Caraxes lifts its wings at the same time as Daemon lifts his arms to protect himself from the flaming arrows. The show makes it evident that Caraxes feels Daemon's pain, physical and emotional, and that Daemon never has to command Caraxes to protect him or to come to his aid. The remarkable bond between Daemon and Caraxes is seen best in episode 10 of Season 1, when Daemon summons Kingsguard Knight Sir Laurent Marbrand and Sir Steffon Darklyn to remind them of their loyalty to Rhaenyra Targaryen, the chosen heir of King Viserys. When Daemon tells the knights to either take their oaths to Rhaenyra or die a painful death, Caraxes crawls down from the cliff, huffing and puffing, ready to blast his fire breath at the knights if required. And Caraxes does this without even a single command from Daemon, clearly showing how well this dragon understands the needs of its master. We know that dragon riders have an impact on the dragons, but there's an interesting theory that dragons can influence their riders as well. Caraxes has seen many wars ridden by Aemon Targaryen, and it's flown alongside Daemon's parents Alyssa and Baelon on Meleys and Vhagar. These past connections of Caraxes may have subtly influenced Daemon to ally with the Velaryons both in marriage and in war, just like his predecessors did. In the show, King Viserys reminds his daughter Rhaenyra that dragon riders never really exercise any control over their dragons. It's only an illusion. This was proven true when Aemon failed to control Vhagar and Lucerys lost control of his dragon, Arrax, leading to a disastrous outcome. But Daemon never really had this issue with Caraxes, not even during their infamous battle over God's Eye. It's almost as if their souls are bonded. They're both fierce and untamed, and this mutual respect and lack of a power dynamic further strengthens their bond. Caraxes' serpentine body with an extended neck and extra leg wings is unlike any other dragon. How does this unique build affect its movement? Well, Caraxes is unique and different from all the other dragons, as was confirmed by Mike Bell, the VFX supervisor of the show, in an interview. He explained, and we quote, "Caraxes is much more serpent-like and slightly twitchy, a bit on edge. We take our cues from what came before, and both reptiles and birds always look at the horizon for threats. Lots of thought went into the way they move and the way they walk. The theory behind Caraxes is like racing animals. They're majestic and brilliant when at full throttle, but awkward and fidgety when lying idle." Furthermore, showrunner Miguel Sapochnik said that Caraxes is a deformed dragon with an exceptionally long serpentine body, which is very unlike a dragon. In fact, if it weren't for the webbed hind legs, Caraxes wouldn't have been able to fly, because the aerodynamics wouldn't work properly. The makers wanted Caraxes to look like Caraxes belongs to the sky, despite its deformity, and hence this dragon was assigned a secondary pair of wings through leg membranes. If we compare Caraxes' physique with other dragons in the show, their bodies are structured symmetrically, so that they have a powerful takeoff thrust and bird-like aerodynamics. But Caraxes, with its disproportionate physique, will not have been capable of flying if not for the leg wings, which support its lengthy tail portion and also helps it to steer properly. In the absence of its leg wings, even if Caraxes managed to take off, it'd crash back into the ground soon enough without the additional support. Caraxes' unique and lean physique can be seen most clearly when the dragon flies to the War Council near the Stepstones in the third episode of Season 1. The silhouette shows that overall, Caraxes has a serpentine body, with an unusually elongated neck and tail, and a really short torso. In addition to its gigantic wings, Caraxes' hind legs have wing membranes attached to its body, which kinda work as leg wings. Daemon's dragon also comes with a forked tail, with some spiky appendages jutting out of it. Another reason for Caraxes' unique shape could be the fact that this dragon is also called the Bloodworm, so the makers gave it a shape similar to the fireworms from Septim Barth's book, Dragons, Worms, and Wyverns, instead of a conventional Valyrian dragon. Caraxes' serpentine structure may give this dragon a deformed appearance, but having a long neck has its perks. Caraxes can reach around another dragon and chomp at its wings or neck without putting itself in a vulnerable position. Like Mike Bell said, Caraxes was designed to always look at the horizon for threats, and what better way to do that than with its stretched out neck? Why does Caraxes shriek and not roar? Another anatomical peculiarity of Caraxes is that this dragon is said to have a deviated septum, which occurs when a nasal septum is disproportionately displaced to one side, making one nasal air passage smaller than the other, which sort of explains why Caraxes shrieks instead of roaring like regular dragons. Moreover, Caraxes' serpentine body and long neck might influence the sound it produces. Caraxes' shrill cries can also be an expression of its wild temperamental nature, setting this dragon apart from others of its kind. Al Circuit, the sound supervisor of the show, further elaborated on Caraxes' squeaky roars with a hilarious explanation. He said that Caraxes thinks of itself as the smartest one in the room, but really isn't. Caraxes is an arrogant loner who believes it's the coolest dragon on the block, but in reality, the other dragons really don't want to hang out with him. This false arrogance reflects in Caraxes' voice. That is, when Caraxes lets out a roar, it sounds really off-key and shrilly. Having said that, the shrieks of Caraxes really give this dragon a unique, sinister vibe, perfectly in sync with its unusual appearance. Is Caraxes male or female? This question brings us to the age-old debate over whether dragons can change their sex or is it permanent. As per the source material Fire and Blood, historian Septon Barth firmly believes that dragons can alter their sex, depending on population and reproduction needs. Septon Barth detailed this concept in his book, which finds mention in the show Game of Thrones. Daenerys Targaryen's dragons Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion are referred to as male in the dialogues, till a dying Maester Aemond has a eureka moment while talking to the character Samwell Tarly. When Samwell reads out Barth's book to Aemond, the Maester comes to the realization that the translation of Barth words from High Valyrian led to a misunderstanding, and that dragons are gender fluid. This means Daenerys' dragons could have been both female and male during different times, which by extension applies to all dragons. However, Barth's theory is strongly contested by the likes of Grand Maester Muncan, Maester Thomax, and most significantly by Archmaester Gildain and Maester Yandel. They theorize that a dragon's sex is determined by whether it lays eggs or not, and according to the Maesters, a dragon that produces eggs is female, and one that doesn't is male, and Caraxes is never known to have laid eggs, which makes this dragon a male. Moreover, the book Fire and Blood consistently describes Caraxes with male pronouns, and so does the show House of the Dragon. Daemon particularly refers to his dragon as he and him. Another point that supports Caraxes being a male dragon is the fact that female dragons are typically described as she-dragons or queen, such as Meleys is the Red Queen and Tessarion is the Blue Queen. Caraxes has never been assigned such a moniker. Moreover, it's established in the lore that Caraxes and Syrax, a she-dragon, have been coiling mates. In fact, Caraxes and Syrax must have spent quite some time together in the Dragon Pit during House of the Dragon Season 1 storyline, following which Syrax produced a clutch of eggs in Episode 8. Thus, Caraxes is believed to be male, but there'll always remain a strain of ambiguity whether dragons are gender fluid or not. Can Caraxes reproduce? It's implied in the books that a dragon rider's bond with its dragon really impacts a dragon's mating habits. For example, King Jaehaerys I Targaryen's dragon Vermithor and Jaehaerys' sister wife Queen Alysanne Targaryen's dragon Silverwing were known to be mating partners. They loved to coil together as some sort of mating ritual, and one theory suggests that Meleys and Caraxes were born out of Vermithor and Silverwing's love bond. Because these two dragons hatched around the same time as Vermithor and Silverwing's respective riders, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, who were also busy expanding their family. As we discussed earlier, Caraxes is a male dragon who attempts to attract she-dragons, including Syrax with his raspy voice. The show's sound designer shared a funny theory and said, "He's always hitting on the lady dragons. He tries to sing a new lovesick rap song he wrote for Syrax." This implies that Caraxes was more than interested in coiling with Syrax, and their mating ritual probably finally happens when Daemon and Rhaenyra were busy enjoying their own marital bliss and making Targaryen babies. It's around this time that Daemon discovers 3 new dragon eggs laid by Syrax, and Caraxes in all probability must be the progenitor of the clutch. So, because Caraxes is a male dragon, he can't lay eggs himself, but he can impregnate the she-dragons, who then produce eggs. Dragon eggs are extremely valuable in all of the 7 kingdoms, and are part of the birthing rituals amongst the Targaryens. Traditionally, dragon eggs are kept in the cradles of newborn Targaryen babies. If the egg hatched, it'd mean the baby is a true Targaryen, and the newborn and the dragon would bond for life. But if the egg remained solid, or if the dragon turned out to be a weakling, it was considered a bad omen. This tradition began during the reign of Aegon the Conqueror, but that's how Jaehaerys and Alysanne bonded with the newly hatched Vermithor and Silverwing. In House of the Dragon, Rhaenyra Targaryen's sons with Laenor Velaryon received 3 dragon eggs to prove their true lineage, and the rumor about their illicit bloodline was put to rest when all 3 eggs hatched one after the other. However, dragon eggs are extremely tricky to hatch. Dragonstone had many unhatched dragon eggs in the volcanic caverns, known as the Dragonmont. The eggs must be typically placed in roaring fires for them to crack. These stone-like eggs come with scales on the shell and are rather heavy. The eggs can retain life within them for decades. Such was the case with Daenerys' dragons, which hatched after around 150 years in the flames of a funeral pyre. Unhatched eggs can also become petrified and turn to stone. It also remains debatable whether the mother dragon protected the eggs she produced or simply left them to hatch, or if the father dragon played any role in their hatching. However, when Daemon discovered Syrax's eggs on Dragonstone, he immediately procured them and sent the eggs to be placed in fire. Caraxes the Bloodworm hints at his ferocious fire. How does Caraxes' fire compare to other dragons? The Bloodworm moniker is reminiscent of the fireworms mentioned in Septon Bath's book, which describes these creatures as deadly serpentine monsters that breathe fire, but don't have wings. They can drill through rock, soil, and stone, and existed even before the dragons came into being. Fireworms can grow to gigantic sizes, and they despise humans. Legend has it the fireworms burnt up the slaves working in the mines of the 14 Flames, through cracks and fissures in stones. Caraxes, with physical similarities to a worm, breathes out a narrow but intense stream of yellow fire with orange flames. Older dragons can release more intense flames, and Caraxes' fire was said to be particularly more lethal and destructive than others, which really is in tandem with the dragon's nature, who loves violence a bit too much. Dragon fire in general is capable of cracking stone and turning flesh into ash within seconds. With its powerful dragon breath, Caraxes proved to be quite instrumental during the War of the Stepstones, and also in the final battle of the Dance of the Dragons era. Guided by Daemon, Caraxes unleashes his fire breath upon the Crabfeeder's army in the Stepstones, burning up the Crabfeeder's stronghold. This sends the Crabfeeder's forces into chaos, and forced the Crabfeeder to retreat to his cavern. In addition to the destructive nature of Caraxes' fire breath, it had a significant psychological impact on the Crabfeeder. After all, seeing a full-fledged dragon breathing torrents of fire is not a usual sight. In the book, Caraxes unleashes his fire breath to help Daemon take Harrenhal from the forces loyal to Aegon II during Dance of the Dragons War. This really draws a parallel with Balerion the Black Dread, the OG dragon of Aegon the Conqueror. Balerion's fire breath melted the Harrenhal castle stone towers, giving it the appearance of molten candles. And even during the final clash between Daemon on Caraxes and Aemond on Vhagar, Caraxes blasted flames with all his might against the biggest dragon in the Seven Kingdoms, though both dragons eventually crash into the God's Eye Lake along with their riders. What are the weaknesses of Caraxes? Dragons may be formidable creatures, but they're not indestructible, as is known from the many dragon deaths in Fire and Blood lore. According to some old wives' tales, the throat and the underbelly were thought to be the weak spots of a dragon, but in reality, they're not really accurate. The weakest spot of dragons is their eyes. By shooting a scorpion bolt or fire arrows through their eyes can fatally wound dragons. If the bolt pierces the eye deep enough, it can shatter the dragon's skull and cause it to drop dead. However, a well-aimed sharp weapon can also pierce the dragon's skin or its wings, but only to cause the creature pain, not to fatally wound it. Dragons are also said to be vulnerable to the Dragonbinder horn, which is a sorcerous mythical horn that was used by the Dragon Lords to control the dragons before the doom of Valyria. If used against Caraxes, it could perhaps force the dragon into submission or even kill it, depending on the opponent's intentions. Dragons in general can also be weathered by long arduous flights, following which they need food and rest to be able to roam the skies again. Though Caraxes is not immune to the scorpion bolts or the Dragonbinder horn, he doesn't encounter any of these attacks in the storyline. His size, compared to bigger dragons, proved to be a reason for his downfall. Despite being a powerful and aggressive beast, Caraxes wasn't gargantuan as such, which affected his ability to sustain in prolonged aerial combat against Vhagar. In the climactic battle of the Dance of the Dragons, Caraxes violently clashed with Vhagar in the sky above the God's Eye Lake and exchanged fire breath and clawing attacks, which ended with both the dragons falling into the lake below. Only a dragon can slit open another dragon's skin, and that's what happened during the aerial battle. Vhagar clawed open Caraxes' belly and tore off his wing, and in retaliation, Caraxes sunk his teeth into Vhagar's throat and chomped it off. Vhagar and Aemon didn't survive the subsequent crash, and neither did Caraxes and his rider Daemon. Caraxes managed to pull himself out of the water, but succumbed to his injuries as his intestines were spilling out. Caraxes and Daemon's deaths in the battle above the God's Eye is a crucial turning point in Dance of the Dragons and marks the beginning of the decline of dragon power in Westeros. Marvelous verdict. In the second episode of House of the Dragon Season 2, Daemon puts on his battle armor and storms out of Dragonstone on Caraxes for destination Harrenhal, and the dragon was seen fuming with fury, just like his master, all set to burn up Aegon's army. It's really the most precious connection between a rider and his dragon, and we can't wait to witness more of these two in action. What are your thoughts on this hot-headed Targaryen dragon duo? Please share with us in the comment section below. And if you liked our video, watch this space for more such dragon content. See you super soon.